Nice to be in touch with you again. And today I want to go back to something I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, which is this new book by Pope Francis called Let Us Dream, because I have drawn great inspiration from it myself. And I'd like to share some of that enthusiasm with you. Always knowing that you're listening to somebody who has only read it once, but I'm very encouraged by it. Just a few things in general. One of the things about this book is that it is written with an eye to three guiding principles for Christian life and action. The first, and they're known as See, Judge, Act. They were made very well known by the wonderful Cardinal Cardine of Belgium in the 1920s, when the Young Christian Workers was started. See, judge, and act. See, look at what's happening in the world, judge it in the light of the gospel, act, do what you're led to do. And there's a fourth stage, which is evaluate what you've done. But anyway, he bases this book on seeing the situation in the world, judging it in the light of the gospel, and then proposing various forms of action. He looks around at the world, and not much escapes his gaze. He talks about the secular realities of our times, the struggle for racial justice, the death of George Floyd, the countries already experiencing the dire effects of global warming in the South Sea Islands, the rights of the poor, the determination to build bridges rather than walls. He even, dear friends, has an enthusiastic section on UBI. UBI, I hear you say, what is UBI? UBI is Universal Basic Income, which a lot of people think is an idea which is soon to have its time. Maybe, maybe not. I only say those things to say that he's very much in touch with 21st century life, and he's looking at it. And then he's judging it in the light of the gospel. And he makes wonderful use of Acts chapter 15, which is sometimes called the first council of the church, the Council of Jerusalem, where Paul and Barnabas go to Jerusalem because there is a major issue to be resolved. Should new converts have to undergo the whole process of the Mosaic law, the law of Moses, before they can be Christians, before they can be baptized? So should they become Jews before they can become Christians? And the Acts chapter 15 shows the discussion of this, different views, eventually a resolution, and a very happy resolution for the future of the church. And Pope Francis's point is, these are people with really strongly opposing views, but they come together, they listen to each other, they invoke the Holy Spirit, and they find a way through. So that's one particular aspect that appealed to me very much. A particular thing, and again, this is only part of what he writes, what the Pope writes about, is his interest in what he calls people's movements. People's movements. These are where people who are affected often by a particular injustice or a particular injustice, let's say, get together, work together how they can resolve the issue and put it into practice. He doesn't mention this particular one, but the one I often think of is the mothers of the disappeared in Argentina, who had very, very noisy protests week after week, banging on their pots and pans to lament and complain about their young people whom the government had taken away and often tortured and killed. And he's obviously the Pope's obviously in touch with these people's movements. He talks about several of them. And his point is that when the people get together and when they organize themselves in order to improve the situation that they're in, great things can happen. It put me in mind of what we have in this country called the citizens movement. It started off with London citizens. They do wonderful work and they draw people from all across the spectrum, every faith, no faith, every aspect of life. And their whole aim is the common good and justice in terms of the common good. And one of the things that the citizens movement in this country has done a great deal to improve is the basic living wage. The living wage, not the basic wage. And they have persuaded various companies to provide, certainly in London, to provide a living wage which is bigger, which is higher than the basic wage. The Pope is very keen on those movements. And I'm going to read you a bit, keeping my eye on the clock, but I'll read you a bit from page 121, where he, having talked about these popular movements, he says this: it's not the church's task to organize the people. These organizations already exist. Some are Christian, some are not. But I would like the church to open its doors more widely to these movements. I hope every diocese in the world has an ongoing collaboration with them, as some already do. But my role and that of the church is to accompany, not to patronize, not to paternalize them. To accompany, not to paternalize. That means offering teaching and guidance, but never imposing doctrine or trying to control them. The church illuminates with the light of the gospel, awakening the peoples to their own dignity. But it is the people who have the instinct to organize themselves. That puts me in mind of a talk I went to years ago. I wouldn't like to say how many years ago, by a professor whose surname was Thompson. I think it was Ian Thompson. He'd written a huge volume called Poverty in Britain. And the story that he was giving 30 or 40 years ago was pretty gloomy. And he was asked the question, where do you see signs of hope in all your researches? And he was very immediate with his answer. He said, I see signs of hope where people suffering from the same condition or injustice band together and work together. They know what the issues are, they can articulate them and then present them to the people that might be able to effect change. Doesn't always work, but the coming together of the people, and Pope Francis is very, very strong on this, the people coming together, the community, the communion of all the people in the world, ultimately. And he says that by listening to the poor, we will always, I think he would even say always, find the way forward for the whole of the world. That's a big claim, but I think it's worth serious consideration. Anyway, I'd better leave it there because I'm running away with myself. But it is an excellent, I hope others will find it if you get a chance to read it, to read his book, Let Us Dream. There's lots more in it than I have said. But it's a hopeful view based on the reality of the situation, seeing what's going on, saying ultimately, we'll never go back to the way things have been. What opportunities is this crisis opening up for the future? and working at it that way. It's very hopeful, very challenging, but I find it very inspiring. Thank you for listening. Those of you who still have continued. Bye for now. Hello again, everyone. A couple of things to mention. One is that we have found it impossible to get copies of Magnificat for February, despite multiple attempts to contact the distributors, which is the Catholic Herald. I'm very unhappy about the situation. Indeed, I rely on the Magnificat myself, and I know many of you do. So, unfortunately, they haven't. We've heard nothing from them either. So I don't know what's happening. I believe that the paper edition of the Catholic Herald has ceased, and they're just online now. But anyway, sorry. If we can do anything about it, we'll do it and we'll let you know. Some of you I know are subscribe anyway and get your edition through the post. If they've got anything to share, maybe you might let us know if you're experiencing difficulties too. That's one thing. And the other thing is I want to invite you to a kind of an experiment using this online facility. This year is the year of St. Mark's Gospel. And I would like to invite as many of you as would like to join in to have a session, a Saturday morning session, 9 o'clock in the morning, that's not too early, at which we will look at St. Mark's Gospel in general, but also look at the Gospel for the coming Sunday. And you will, if you look at the website, you will see that there's a separate button, ourladyhernebay.co.uk/Mark, and you will be instructed as to what to do then, as to make the link and so forth. Let's see what we can do. It'd be a bit of a novel experience for me, but it would be lovely to be able to have a shared session with you, and that we can see each other and share our share the gospel, this wonderful Gospel of St. Mark. And I have found on YouTube some very good talks by Father Nicholas King, a Jesuit, on St. Mark's Gospel, and I recommend the first one. I think it only lasts 10 or 11 minutes. It's very good, in my view. It's very accurate, of course. This man has translated the Bible from start to finish by himself, and he has a kind of theatrical way of talking, but I hope you'll enjoy it. He has a lot of good things to say. Look at that. It just concentrates on the first few verses of Mark, and we'll use that as a springboard next Saturday, 9 o'clock. Hope to see you then. Bye for now.